Hello and welcome to Springboard of Virtual University. My name is Albert Okran, welcoming you to Ghana's most inspirational show and the point of convergence for the greatest minds. Springboard is brought to you by the Springboard Roadshow Foundation and proudly sponsored by MTN Pulse, the Enterprise Group, and the Ghana Growth Program. And for those of you who are asking, the Ghana Growth Program is a collaboration between the Springboard Roadshow Foundation, the MasterCard Foundation, and Limehouse, aimed at inspiring young people to make deliberate choices to pursue decent and fulfilling careers in agribusiness and the ATVET sectors. And we'll be talking a bit more about some of those opportunities. Our media partners are the Multimedia Group and the Graphic Business. So this is a third in our series on what we call the job pathways, trying to find out where are the jobs, where are the opportunities, what must young people do as they seek to pursue careers and find decent jobs. This is against the backdrop of Africa's phenomenal or humongous unemployment problem. So far, I've been trying to explore some of these pathways with my guests so far, Edward Debra, from Scotland, as well as Andy Akutu from KPMG, who was here with us last week. Now, in all these conversations, many of you were particularly interested in what we call the 5 fastest growing industries in Africa, namely financial technology, food, e-commerce, real estate, and logistics. And you ask a simple question: how do we penetrate these industries and take advantage of the opportunities? I'm joined in the studios by a good friend of mine, Eric Nsako, who has been on this platform quite a few times. He's portfolio advisor at MEST, and the reason why he's here is because he recently pioneered Brorno. I like the name Brorno. It's cool. It's cool.
Thank you.
Brorno, Eric's entity is called Street Streams, but he has pioneered an e-commerce platform that we want to talk about, among other things. But we're trying to find out, how can e-commerce be an enabler for jobs and for growth, and then especially in the informal sector? Eric, welcome to Springboard.
Thank you very much, Reverend.
And congrats on the innovation you are pioneering and pushing.
Thank you.
I'm sure it's a product of thought, effort, money, time, and sleepless nights.
No, I'm telling you.
Well done. Are you surprised that any of these 5 industries that we are mentioning as the fastest?
I am not. I believe that a lot is happening in agriculture, agri-tech in particular. Platforms are being created, big companies have emerged, international press is paying attention. And I think that likewise, logistics comes into I used to live in the Netherlands between 2002 and 2007. And we used to say that the Dutch economy is really powered by Rotterdam Harbour and Schiphol Airport. Like, companies love it. It's a hub. The goods and merchandise are not coming into Holland. They are just, turning around there. So the flow is part of development, and e-commerce is really, my passion and what I do. And fintech, obviously, we have a close marriage between. So yeah, online education, like, these are things that are within the space that I'm very busy in. So
right. So, for the benefit of the person asking, what is e-commerce? Help us to appreciate in simple terms what e-commerce is.
So an e-commerce transaction would take place if you sell something to somebody who requested it from you over email or over a telephone call, over a website or some digital platform. So pretty much, if I came to you and I asked for these items and you gave me a price and I paid you one way or the other, we would have transacted in an e-commerce environment. But there are so many variants of it. And
one day, Facebook and Instagram went down for 2 hours, and it was almost mayhem. And I realized that it was almost like shutting down a mall where people's offices are, because that's their office. There are several players who have no office, and they are office is Instagram.
Mhm.
And they seem to be doing quite well. I call it the Instagram economy. Now it's qualified for e-commerce.
It qualifies because you know you call it the Instagram economy, but one young man we were training called it the jungle economy
Why jungle?
because he said, you know, when he wakes up, he actually looks at people's statuses. So he sees his friend selling this shoe for 200 cedis, and he puts the same shoe on his status for 220. So if he's able to sell it fast, he goes and pays the 200 to his friend.
Wow.
And makes the 20. So in his mind, there's a jungle out there. Yeah, exactly. One or the other.
Lecture will be calling the show and saying, so what's happening to you?
Likewise, mine.
Right.
Yeah.
But it's incredible how fast. What advantages does this bring? Because if it weren't convenient and it weren't, people won't be doing so much there. What does it bring?
Oh, I think it is the basic 4 P's of marketing that clearly the promotion is very powerful because it's people you know that are endorsing what you're going to buy. And the pricing is very flexible because the person is the owner of the item, so they can come down to your level. And obviously the place is free delivery. So, and the product, of course, I think the product is a bit tricky there because you might not all that glitters is gold, but within the constraints of what is feasible, I think it's really answering the questions of the youth.
I suspect that convenience and cost savings could be possible drivers because really, I mean, if I can get it at home, I don't have to spend money coming all the way to the mall. I save on traffic, I save on fuel, I save on my time, and I get it when I want.
Exactly.
Exactly. And it's cost savings, and these two are very big in buying decisions.
Exactly. Very respectable channel also.
Which I mean, I am a books person, and I don't, and no disrespect to any bookshop, but I don't recall the last time I went to a bookshop. If I wanted a book, I'll just text, I'll just WhatsApp, email, or call. My book, you just deliver the book. Any book that comes in town, out in town, my first thing is to text another one and say, Charlie,
yeah, he's a great guy.
And it comes anywhere. I'm just looking at the convenience of it. Which sectors or which industries have benefited from e-commerce in Ghana? Have we done well compared to other countries?
That would be difficult for me without a good statistical dashboard. But taking a cursory look, I don't think we've done well. I think that, I mean, if I look at the United States where I have the numbers, I think 50% of e-commerce in America was done by Amazon at the time of the pandemic. And 10% of the consumption of America was online at the time. And America has the biggest consumption in the world, including people's school fees and big items that are classified as consumption. So that was a huge part of the $17 trillion American economy. But over here, taking a cursory look, we don't really even have a proper basket for these things in the consumer price index. And it's not on the dashboard yet significantly. But that is potential.
Okay.
So
you're saying that maybe in the 5, they've done well or they are growing in Africa, but there's still much more ground to.
Absolutely.
The Ghanaian situation, it's one of the areas that you see do far better in. Let me find out what are the critical success factors for a good e-commerce economy to thrive. What does it need?
Well, I mean, I think it's fair to say widespread internet and smartphones are important at this stage. The internet is really the cradle of most of what is going on. But apart from that, I think the rest are actually stacked up in Ghana's favor because you have to have a trading history. We are a country that has a history of traders. And that's very important because these institutions of trade in Salaga and beyond are, 1,000 years old. So once you have that as part of your culture, the market day is the biggest day in many communities in Africa, including NEMA. So, once you have those things, you're ready for e-commerce.
So you're saying that the critical success factors for any e-commerce to do well anywhere will be internet, smartphones, a trading history,
and culture.
and culture. What about payment system?
Payment systems, I have to be honest, I take for granted a bit.
For a person trying to exploit from scratch.
Yeah, but you need it.
Yes,
you need
payment systems. Okay.
Yeah.
And then delivery systems or
delivery is what we are trying to do differently, because if we wait for the delivery infrastructure of the Netherlands and California to get here, then it will not be in our lifetimes. But I think that because of the fragmentation of our society, there are a lot of options for disrupting warehousing and disrupting the last mile delivery, which we can bring in and shorten the road to a mature e-commerce society.
So what you're saying is that the critical success factors include delivery, but we need to find a way to disrupt it because we don't have the kind of structure. Now, in terms of delivery, will address systems also find itself in the picture?
So yeah, there are two. Your questions are deep in the sense that there are two dimensions to it. Like the answer is yes, but then the thing is that can Ghana also wait to solve it?
No, I'm talking about globally.
Globally,
if you are trying to build an e-commerce infrastructure, what is required? You can come and look at, do we have it in Ghana?
Yeah, okay.
You will have
it's yes. Yeah.
Okay. So I'm just trying to track the value chain from the point where I used to go to a bookshop to buy a book. Now I'm sitting at home. So you're saying internet is number one. Two, smartphones, or at least a way to reach the smartphones, email technology. And then you're saying there must be some kind of trading culture or history. You're saying there must be payment systems. And now we are agreeing that there must be a delivery mechanism. And then also
a payment
address. An address. Now I can give you my location by pin.
Exactly. Exactly.
Okay, so these are the key ones. Any other one I've left out? When we say e-commerce is growing and is an enabler, do you think that it exponentially can grow a country's economy if things are done, let's say, digitally or by e-commerce rather than by face-to-face trading?
I believe so. One of the people that I spoke about on digitization, and I think I came up in one of my Springboard interviews that I had spoken extensively to Nukunya before he died.
Prof.
Yeah.
You taught me sociology in first year.
You said so. But I went to him and I said, I've read your book, Sociology of Ghana, and how the movement from cowries to currency completely lifted up the economy. And I also then want to know that now that we are moving from currency to electronic payment, don't you share the view that it could be such a major transformation? And, I met him at Loggia Sabah Hall with his staff here. And we had an interesting chat with me, but then he told me that he asked me actually, he said, which of my children is your classmate? And I said, Benza. And he said, yeah, so I'll give you somebody who's Benza's age to answer some of these incredible questions that you have. Because the message you were sending to me was that it's interesting for interrogation, but he's not going to disturb his Sunday coming to research what electronic money means compared to what a cowrie to currency. So young sociologists must take it up. And I think those marching orders we are still serving.
So are you saying that we've not been able to relate enough?
I don't think we have.
Why?
Because we don't interrogate enough. I think we have assumed that it is technical. When you asked me, what have you left out? I nearly said technology skills, and I bit my tongue.
Why?
Because it's a barrier. When you say it, people say, we are not there yet. And then, so I like to keep it at the back of my mind, but I don't. It's relevant, but it's a barrier. Most people want that reason so that we can say, then we are going to sell by the gutter and we will not do anything else.
Eric, if I may say so, I mean, compared to 5 years ago, let's take some of the most broadly consumed items, business, let's say the individual's budget.
Mm-hmm.
Let's start with food, where I always would start from.
Mm-hmm.
Typically today, many people buy their food online
Mm-hmm.
and can order from any Uber Eats, Bolt Food,
Mm-hmm.
any
Mm-hmm.
Glovo, any of these,
Mm-hmm.
and they'll be delivered to them.
Mm-hmm.
If you went to water, the same, groceries, she will deliver bundles to your doorstep, and all others who provide that kind of service.
Mm-hmm.
If you went to transport, well, transport kind of, because I don't know whether you would qualify in that basket, but clothing, many people buy online. Shelter, you can deliver.
Well, Mikasa is doing it. Yeah.
Unless you talk about
Mikasa,
offering them for how would you classify this?
Craigslist, or there's a few platforms.
But typically, most of the things that people consume on a day-by-day basis can be procured online or are being procured here in Ghana online. Do you still think we haven't made progress in this space?
You see, if I'm to steal a page from telecommunication analytics, I recall that when I was in the industry, 1% of the people paid 7% of the revenue. And when you stretch that to 5%, then the 5% were paying 14% of the revenue. Now, the bottom 50% were also paying 14% of the revenue, which made it profitable then for a company to choose 1.2 million people who give them about the same revenue as 12 million people. And what that means is that the e-commerce is restricted to the 5% that I'm talking about, who basically can afford, because the companies you are talking about are all multinational corporations. Bolt, Uber, Jumia.
Local small players, the small.
Instagram economy. Okay.
What I've done, and Eric, this is is going to be the second part of our conversation. So I have my studio here. Last week I mentioned a Ghanaian company that does lemongrass tea that could easily pass for the Harrods packaging. For those of you on radio, I know you can see it, but I'm going to describe it so you can get it right. But this hibiscus lemongrass tea is packaged very beautifully in a tin that looks just like this tin from Harrods. And I have next to it Gold Coast Roasters tea produced, I believe, in the Volta region. Okay. So this is Volta Mountains. Then I have here Moringa tea, also produced here in Ghana. I've put it next to the one produced and sold in the UK. The Ghanaian packaging is not bad.
It's not.
When we come back from this break, I want to ask you, Eric, what would it take to have mass e-commerce where these my young friends, a number of them female, who are producing the agribusiness value chain, chocolates, tea, some of them are doing groceries delivery. What will it take to be able to massively operate in the e-commerce space? Because I found out one thing. My friend said to me, just because I started selling by delivery, I've maintained the same office space, but my clientele has gone up 10 times. That is what I want us to explore. We'll come back with the break.
Absolutely.
Deal?
Yeah, good deal.
Right.
Yeah.
This is Springboard Venture University, talking about e-commerce with Eric and Sako, trying to find out what are the prospects for building this economy through e-commerce. And then, even more importantly, how can we create jobs for the young people, including more jungle economy guys who see your product on the internet, sell it for you, and then take the margin. I love that guy. Actually, unemployment, we have no excuse. I'm telling you. When I come back, let's explore that right here on Springboard, the Venture University. Please don't go away.
Well, now that we're all here, I want to start by saying what a difficult year it has been for all of us. But then there's also a lot to be grateful for. You know, like when I bumped my car into a taxi right at our junction. and the insurance company paid my claims the very same day.
And remember the surprise cash bonus we received for our funeral finance plan? That is what sponsored our trip to the beach.
And the song we sang all the way to Pram Pram. I'm also grateful that every passing year brings me closer to enjoying the retirement benefits I have contributed so much to. And how since I started working from home after the COVID pandemic, I've been taking better care of myself. Even my doctor can attest to that.
Speaking of that, I'm very grateful to the team at Transitions for giving Grandpa a befitting send-off.
Well, on a happier note, I am grateful to have found an affordable office space to rent at Advantage Place.
Enterprise, your advantage.
Welcome back to Springboard, your virtual university, and to this incredible conversation about e-commerce as one of the fastest growing industries in Africa with my friend Eric Nsaku. Springboard is brought to you by the Springboard Leadership Foundation and proudly sponsored by MTN Pulse, the Enterprise Group, the Ghana Growth Program, with media support from the Multimedia Group and the Graphic Business. Let me remind you that this year's Teenpreneurship 2023 is a special edition brought to you in partnership or in conjunction with the Ghana Growth Program. And it's a boot camp, non-residential, for young people aged between 12 and 17. And it's a totally sponsored program. And that means that some young people get to get a scholarship to attend. And I'll be sharing with you very shortly or in the course of this series how you can qualify to get a scholarship to attend this non-residential boot camp for a week. It would provide them with job readiness skills, trends in technology, and even more importantly, opportunities in the agriculture, agribusiness, and ATVET sectors. So if you are a young person listening aged between 12 and 17, make the virtual university put a placeholder there and make sure that every Sunday and every Saturday you are listening so you can participate in Teenpreneurship 2023. So far, Eric has been telling me about the fact that these fastest growing industries have one common foundation or bed, and that is technology. And he cites agri-tech in particular as one area that is rising very fast and catching global attention. Even the story in Ghana is of great interest across the world. You say e-commerce is literally buying and selling through telephone, email, website, or any other digital channel. And the main advantages it brings are similar to the 4 P's in marketing, but you're highlighting particularly innovative promotion, flexible pricing, and then delivery as the drivers of e-commerce. The critical success factors you've mentioned so far are internet, smartphones, trading culture, payment systems, delivery chain, and then address system or locations that can be found. And you're saying that while it has great potential, our story so far has been a small part of the population rather than a widespread adoption of e-commerce. This second part of the conversation is a challenge to you, Eric. You've pioneered a platform recently. I want to explore how my young friends, especially, I have a bias for young people. I have loads of young people aged between probably 21 and 35 who are doing stuff and trying to eke out a living for themselves. And I'm trying to use the series to point them to where they can go, what they can do, how they can grow. And so I'm in touch with, we are in touch with lots of them here at Springboard. They bring us samples of what they do. We point them to where to go. And especially in the agribusiness ATV space, we formed quite a number of relationships. I have a number of them listening today, and I want you to help us to appreciate. How can we bring people producing chocolates, tea, coffee, delivering groceries, doing cottage industries, small holders? How can we bring them into e-commerce? Not just in a small way, but big time across the country. Those doing books, anything. How does your platform make that happen? And how can we make this a mass adoption thing?
So you see, our platform it's very simple and easy to use, because the idea is that these many young entrepreneurs that you described, one of their big challenges is going to be how to set themselves up. It costs some money to do a conventional internet setup. So what we try to do was an unconventional one, where I know that this is a very small screen, but all you do is you try to, for example, I have a merchant on this phone called Resin, Resin. By the way, the platform is called Brorno, which is Brorno.
So that's like your locality.
Your locality.
It's a keyword.
Or Brorno also.
Okay, Brorno. So it's an app.
It's an app.
On Apple Store
and Google Play Store. Yeah. So Gamma will say Okuchuemi. Exactly.
So
Okay.
what do you do?
So if you take the merchant I just spoke about called Raisin, so I can go to Raisin, and Raisin has some of what you are describing. Let's say jollof. So I put the jollof there. I add it to my basket. I go to my basket, and then I request the item to Raisin. So because Raisin is on this phone, you see that it's ringing at Raisin. And then Raisin answers and sees that somebody's checking for how much their item is. So they place a bid. That's why the differentiation happens.
Hold on there. What do you mean by a bid?
Thank you. You see, jollof is a bit simpler. The price doesn't change every day. But for a lot of them nowadays, they want to change prices even 2 times a day.
Serious?
Things are rough.
Oh my goodness.
Things are rough,
Okay.
Especially spare parts and pharmaceuticals. There are a few things they want to change as soon as it happens. And also sometimes they want to look at Reverend and add a little margin.
So what you're saying is that, unlike, let's say if I went to Amazon and I'm buying a book, in this instance, what you're saying is that this system allows flexible pricing.
That's right.
So price is a differentiation.
All
right.
So, and all the dynamics are there. They know the quantity you are requesting. So instead of
does the bid come from the person buying or the person selling? The person selling makes an offer.
The person selling makes an offer. So that's what they have to do now. And that offer might be, 2 CDs, and then you say you have maybe only 5 in stock. That information is also important. The offer is coming, the request is from the buyer, but the response is from the seller. So once the seller says this, it is going straight to the buyer specifically, because your price is not my price. It's just like Mokola.
So can you negotiate?
So you can't negotiate. No, you if you also counter offer, I guess we don't have that functionality. That's the simple answer. I know.
You see how much of real life behavior
we are mimicking. Yeah.
What was the most? So what gasket or
gasket, filter, clutch disc,
disc.
Yeah,
so
plugs.
I go to, let's say on your platform, somebody sells clutch disc, and then I see it there, and I click on it. Once I click on it, and I click on a particular buyer's clutch disc, you get a phone call.
Yeah.
Then what I click, they'll tell me maybe we have 3 of them available. And who tells the price?
They tell you the price.
They tell me the price. And if I like it,
then you see, this one I went straight to a merchant. There's also a functionality where you just say you want a clutch near you. So 4 merchants can bid. And that's when the negotiation comes in. So what you are doing is you are choosing the cheapest, but the others are aware that people are bidding. So it's a kind of negotiation, but it's not you know.
Can you see whoever is bidding?
No,
you can't see them.
only the buyer can see. So this one, the next is to pay. And the beauty of the payment is that it also sits on the platform. So it's when you see the item and you confirm delivery that you're happy with it, then the money will go to the...
Let me ask you a very difficult question. Sorry.
Yeah.
Because you mentioned Abosokane.
Mm-hmm.
If it was chocolate or
Mhm.
coffee,
Mhm.
when it's delivered, case closed, you just
Mhm.
pay, you are done.
Mm-hmm.
But in a case where you're talking about spare parts,
Mm-hmm.
it's possible the thing can come and it's not exactly what, or it's perfect, but not for your car. There's an A version and a B version. And you fit the thing, it didn't fit.
Mhm.
What happens? You've paid.
No, you have to confirm it is what you want before you confirm delivery, which is the existing system of Abosoka.
Yes.
They bring it, that's what they call ECAM. I don't know what ECAM means, but in Abosoka, when they say ECAM, it means it went to a fitter and came back.
Okay.
Uh-huh.
Okay.
Yeah.
So what you're saying is that they are trying hard to mimic real life behavior.
Exactly.
That's like adaptability.
Yes.
How critical is that in e-commerce?
You see, it's very critical in system adoption that you are not taking people too far from what they know. Uh-huh. So, you know, just to digress a bit, when we wanted smartphones in Ghana, we went to Tiptoe Lane. And in those days, the Tiptoe Gardens, we sat at the back of it. I think at that time it had become a church, but we sat at the back of it. And all the big smartphone traders were there. Freddy's Corner, Jaman Phones, Ben's Phones, all of them came and sat down with us. And then I said to them that we've tried. We don't have smartphones. What can we do with you so that it works? So they gave me 3 conditions. They said they don't like the network on Tiptoe and they feel it's disrespectful to Tiptoe. So we should fix that. 1. The bundles that telecom networks give to Apple, Samsung, and so on and so forth, they don't give to Chinese phones. 2, they believe that the Chinese phones were the answer to the penetration we are seeking. So you should go and fix that. And then the last one was that if you get a good deal, like maybe Huawei comes to you and gives you a good deal as a telecom operator, bring it to them first, because it is a provocation when you flood the market with something, because they will undercut you. And that battle must stop. So at that point, I accepted all 3 conditions. And I said, for you to adopt what I am also bringing, I will fulfill all of these 3. And people will die if they don't, come to the table to do the engineering for you to have what you have. And as a result of that, we got some of the biggest, that's why that's why you have so much support for smartphones today in there.
I'm talking about the socialization, the sociological community entry, understanding people aspect of policy, of engagement.
Mm-hmm.
I have a number of examples, but I remember one that was shared on this platform by Esther Koba.
Lovely lady.
Yes, she was talking about the fact that policy makers shouldn't always think that you can use the police, the navy, and the people to go and enforce. And she says there was a case where they had to do, when she was GMP, so they had to do some seismic work in some waters around the Western region area that involved stopping fishing for a while. And she says, Charlie,
it's a long
they were
process.
intending to, because for the equipment they were renting, if anything went wrong, a day's rental was $1 million. So it was just too sensitive to allow any fishermen to come and explore the thing.
Yeah.
They were going to go with the navy to encircle the police. She said,
Take it easy. Take it easy.
She said she went to call the chief shaman, explain the thing to him, give them 1 week, told them fish all you can.
Store it. Yeah.
Saw the relevant stakeholders. He says in the end, not only was a gongo and an announcement made in the community that nobody should go and fish, the chief fishermen were themselves patrolling the shore. He said the thing was smooth, the cost was far less.
There you go.
So you're talking about how in introducing innovation, sometimes the key players,
We have to come
you
down.
have to understand that. Calm down.
We have to come down. Yeah.
But the big lesson, I mean, beyond all that, Eric, is that anything we do with technology, from what you are saying, must mimic the real life behavior. If not, it's nice, but it will not.
You are not going to get it if you don't, because look, I've worked with Oracle and I've worked with SAP. One is American, one is German. Oracle is a system of convenience. You know, you click and you're moving. It's fast food. It's America. SAP, you click, another screen comes. And it gets so frustrating for somebody who's not regimented. You know. But when I was in Europe, I complained once, and the guys told me, think Germany. You are going to go through hierarchy after hierarchy after hierarchy. You're in the Third Reich, the Fourth Reich, the Fifth Reich, you know. So it just allows you to get into flow with whatever you are in. And you see, the point is that sometimes in Ghana, we shun the examples of IT systems and so on and so forth. But you see, my favorite example is the recent coronation of the King of England. You know, when Asante Hene entered Buckingham, he opened his umbrella. And many people in Ghana, rather, were saying, doesn't do 2 for no, it's not raining there. And I said, no, read the history of what is happening. When he's sitting at Akwesida, you think Dwabe Hene can open his umbrella in front of him? There's a certain culture around who is opening, who is not opening. As you approach him, there are things you have to do. So when you are approaching another king and you hoist yours, there's a statement you are making. And it is very important, because how come that he was taken to go and negotiate the return of the stolen treasures from Africa? How come so many governments are following the same thing, but they are not talking to them? So I'm just saying that, you know, it's important. I was at a funeral 2 days ago and I met Tobe Apede. So, you know, we stood at the, outskirts of the funeral, and we reminded each other of when we used to meet at Asogli. He told me he has been on the throne for 20 years and so on and so forth. But you see the types of societies that Tobe is bringing together. He's a business person, financial person, chairman of Accra House of Folk. He's also a traditional ruler. So when you bring those, nobody can defeat you.
Interesting.
Yeah.
This is Springboard Virtual University. E-commerce branching into community engagement, branching into sociology, and saluting the late Prof. Mukunya. And then also looking at how all this can help me to bring my final point home, Eric, on how my young friends who are doing so well can grow and create jobs. Let's talk to them. How can they create more jobs by going digital? How can they expand their business rapidly, especially in the agribusiness space, by digitizing and not relying on brick and mortar business?
So I think, you see, to bring this product to fruition, you've dealt with a very complex upstream supply chain, which involves farmers before you get to packaging. So one of the biggest challenges with dealing with smallholder farmers is data, where you need to, in the same way I showed for Brorno, all of these guys need to be available on a platform where they will say to you that they have stocks and they are looking for a bid for those stocks. And then you will respond with your bid, sort of reverse auction system where they are sourcing from you a bid, you know. And once you get that going, the farmers get a fair price, because it's not, you know, I know we compliment Manya a lot, you know, but sometimes also the farmers wish they could meet the consumer. You know, I think when my brother worked for Unilever, he used to call it from the farmer to the fork. That as long as you can shorten that, it's exactly. And Manya will support you. She has enough not to worry about one farmer somewhere getting a better deal. So once that is done, and then now you need to do the secondary supply chain. which also is what I just demonstrated, that you put it online, and then it takes care of your other question, the Instagram economy, because it is laborious to find somebody's Instagram profile. And during the pandemic, I saw it a lot, that I saw a lot of things I liked on Instagram. And I kept screenshotting to people. Have you used this before? Have you used that before? And everybody says no. So, but if you go on Brorno now, there's a rating system. So at the end, you need to rate that supplier. And it's simple. If you give him 1 star, it's just like Uber. So I'm not going to take a 1-star Uber. I'll cancel and try again. So that's the digitization of this. That brings in the Instagram economy also, and then lifts us to a point where the government can monetize, which is a very important part of what we are discussing, that this informal sector is the country. But, you and I keep getting the tax spikes because we are identifiable. But if you aggregate onto Brorno or Brorno type platforms, then it is those platforms. eBay is paying tax on behalf of a lot of people because they can levy. When I take your price, I can add a fee to it, and that fee will sort out everything that is fiscal, and that kind of formalizes the environment where then you get infrastructure, you get the kinds of things that you don't that take you away from IMF bailouts and the more jittery stuff.
Make this happen, Eric.
So I'm a believer. In 2019, I visited San Francisco, Silicon Valley, and what I took away from there was that, and I've mentioned it in almost every interview that I've done, but I took away the fact that at the axis or at the apex was the Stanford University, and the Sandhill Road was one corner of a triangle where all the funding in the world came from. And then the other corner was the incubators of Google, Facebook, accelerators, and all of that. So everywhere in the world that you put that triangle together.
What's the triangle? Education, incubators, and then funding. Powerful.
Everywhere you put it together, you are going to get a lot of good. You're going to get development, and I think it's a policymaker who must deliberately enable that triangle.
So last week in the discussion about enablement, policy enablement, Andy Akoto mentioned that a low-hanging fruit, in his opinion, was to take a place that is dedicated to Ghanaian innovations, so people can find out what is available. Of course, not everybody can travel there. He mentioned, as an example, the former trade fair as a broad space that could be dedicated to people going to find out what Ghanaian innovations are there, and they not having to compete with big players from other economies that have big names and big labels. You are saying that one low-hanging fruit you can look at is a golden triangle, if I may use those words, of education, incubation, innovation, and funding. Will that be a physical location, or will that
need not be?
Will that be a collaboration between them?
Or let's say it's a hybrid, because Andy is my very good friend as well, and I worked for KPMG before. The Ghana Digital Centers has such a location where there's a lot of 3D printing and there's a lot of stuff going on. Madame Constance Swanika, of whom I have a lot of, whom I respect very much, has set up the DTI, and it's working very well. MEST, where I advise, is a huge space as well where these things are going on. And I do relate to what Andy says about that we should properly leverage the space we have at the trade fair and make these things part of our culture so that the young people can create the jobs. So yeah, it's a hybrid between what the physical space represents and what the virtual space represents. But what I described, we actually have tried out, because when my former neighbor and senior Padigo, Professor Francis Dodo, was Pro Vice Chancellor of University of Ghana. We entered into an agreement with them. At that time, I was in telecom, and they, facilitated that, or we were able to use our interns to access startups on Legon campus. And then they were able to also send professors across to come and look at the social and psychological dimensions of mobile money and smartphones and see how we can relate that to our culture and to theory of reasoned action and social cognitive theory and so on and so forth. So that was going. In Ghana, the funding we have, like we just discussed, is perhaps not so much VC and private equity as it is MasterCard and UNICEF and GIZ, and so that was the next stage of the collaboration. And I remember we had a meeting at Accra Digital Center after I moved to Stanbic Bank. I left telecoms and went into banking before I went to Mest. And when I moved to banking, we had another meeting where Telecel was then trying to buy Ghana Telecom. They were present. MTN was present. MasterCard Foundation was there. I think Ashesi Provost was there, Angela, and Richard Boateng, head of MIS of Legon. So there were a lot of, and Ministry of Finance was there, Ghana Cares program, and all of them. And the idea was that we should take that forward. But what I see is that typically the intercultural barriers are hard to navigate. So later on, I started getting calls from the UK to say the ministry people are not signing the MOU quickly and so on. And there was so much emotional, difficulty in bringing the team together, especially since it's a team that does not have a hierarchical authority where you could give executive orders to anybody. So it got to a point where, but I don't think it is lost. I think that is something that can still be fostered, and once we do that, you can get development. I mean, under the circumstances, some of the numbers that are not mainstream out there. I was at Constance's DTI enabled conversation. We met there, and you remember the labor statistics was one of the big topics throughout the thing. Yeah.
Let before we sign off on this conversation, we've talked a lot about what can be done in the digital space in terms of enabling e-commerce as a driver or enabler for jobs and growth. But let me take a minute of your time before we wrap up to address young people in terms of job readiness. You've been, the more you mention the places where you have been, the more I say you have literally a kaleidoscope in terms of experiences. Just for the benefit of that young person starting out their career or at the very foundational levels, in terms of job readiness, if you sat on a panel, generic, what kinds of people do you hire? What do you look for?
Look, more and more, I want unconventional people. That's the big thing that I look out for. I'm not really looking for perfect grades, perfect eloquence, perfect grooming, perfect family background, perfect neighborhood. But it's good. I don't discriminate against that. If I like the fit with what we are looking for, fine. But I also like a guy who wrote a song along the way, and then combine some subjects that don't make sense,
Because you are that kind of person, or they tend to be good innovators.
I think they tend to be good innovators. Myself, I did not start as that kind of person. I did grew up on the campus of University of Ghana, went to Achimota, went to Tech, went to engineering. I thought that it was the way to go. But I stumbled on that life when Valco was closed down after my national service. Because what I really wanted was to do 37 years at Valco, buy, 2 houses, rent one, and have a good 4x4 car for my retirement. That was the career plan. That was the career plan that I went to Valco with. And I still remember the afternoon when I saw Valco Portrum Superintendent Setaje, and I said, "Boss, can I talk to you?" He said, "What's wrong?" And I said, "Oh, I would like to come and talk to you about after my national service, whether I can get a job." And honestly, the look he had was the look of a father, a lot of pain. And then he said, well, I should
Bad news for you.
check the notice board at 2 p.m. Those days, there was no email. It's 1993. So Valco closes at 3. So at 3:30. So at 2 p.m. I went and checked, and they said half of the capacity of Valco will be closed down. And there were going to be layoffs. There was doomsaw. And so, I mean, when I got to my team area, I saw grown men in such pain that I lost every dream of working for Valco. I knew that these people are going home. And what happens to me? That was the first thing that crossed my mind. What happens to me? What happens to all the dreams, all the prayers? What's happening? You know, and from that time onwards, you know the story. I've been with 17 different organizations. I've called them employers, but sometimes they are partners. And, you know, I mean, look, I mean, I know that, you know, the clergy is trained on matters of faith, but what we are trained on in this corporate struggle is a different kind of enablement. It makes you understand why Moses pointed a rock in Numbers 20 and said that water will come. Because at that moment, there's the only thing you have is your staff. There's nothing else. My father had told me that he's retiring. My mother was also coming back. You know, she was in Swaziland, but she was coming back in the next few months. But what God lifted us through in that period changed my outlook of life. And that's what I mean now by, I think that indeed, when I'm recruiting somebody, I need to give that irregular part of the diamond chip a chance to shine. And I will not do it to discriminate against any other person. But I've seen so much value over the years from people who did not look like they were going to be the perfect fit. And that's probably what I still look out for.
This is what the guys call the icing on the cake. Thank you very much, Amin Sako.
Thank you, Reverend.
Very
Thank
much.
you, Reverend.
And you've shared some very priceless lessons. And for the benefit of those who love to take notes, Eric says the 5 fastest growing industries in Africa are all undergirded by technology. He says agri-tech. Keep your eye on agri-tech. Second point is that e-commerce is simply buying enabled to either phone, email, website, or any digital channel. Third one is that the advantages are innovative promotion, flexible pricing, and the delivery mechanisms that make it convenient for the buyer. The fourth one is the critical success factors, mainly internet, smartphones, trading culture, payment systems, delivery chain, and then an address system so that the items can be delivered to you at a location. The fifth is that it says, while there's growth potential, to put it bluntly, we've just scratched the surface. A small fraction of the population is operating in the e-commerce space. There's so much more that can be done. He says, for it to succeed, we must closely mimic real life behavior. Our solutions must not be far away from how people are used to operating. Then they can see that the adoption can be real. I asked him a direct question about friends of mine who are young people doing agribusiness, packaging beautifully and trying to leverage and sell their products. And he says the next level for them, having surmounted the bigger issues like the value chain of production, processing and packaging, is to ensure that there's solid data backing what they are doing. People can tell what stock levels you have. Anytime they request, you can tell with precision what the data, what levels that they are, what quality you have, and everything. And that becomes the next frontier, after which they go to the secondary level of being able to trade it, not just through the Instagram economy, but also through platforms like his that can aggregate at one place for ease of finding you. The 8th point is about Silicon Valley and the golden triangle of education, funders, and innovators, and how when they come together, so much becomes possible. The 9th point is about hiring unconventional people. And he says, Charlie, sometimes somebody who just wrote a song somewhere or mixed some strange subjects, those are the kind of people he hires, not just the boxes that we normally tick, but somebody who comes on and looks like an innovator. But the 10th is my favorite, that there is outlook on life was redefined by disruption. What was the year? 1993?
1993.
Post-national service disruption that is it 2 house,
Yeah.
1 4-wheel drive, a retirement dream
Thank you.
after Valco.
Mhm.
Once that was disrupted, it redefined his outlook on life. Stay with this conversation on job pathways because we'll keep exploring other rising industries and how you can play in them. So we'll be bringing you a conversation about logistics, about real estate, about education online, and try and pull out fintech and then settle on agritech, ATVET, and all the spaces in between. What will be your closing thoughts?
Just to thank you for what you do, right? Because when you said 2008, I looked up and I looked down again because, I kind of remember that time when it was more, there was no Facebook.
Yeah.
So it was more radio and a lot of young people not sure whether they were going to hear motivation or they were going to join a community or whatever. But I'm thinking back the past 15 years, and I think that it has become something really solid. And I think I say this every time I spoke at, I said this every time I spoke at Springboard, that if you are not part of any community activity on Springboard, you are never going to feel the vibe of a community that has been built. And I think today, what we are looking at is around that. I've just told a number of people that today I have to speak to the owner of, or the founder of Torture Diaries, Yaodo, because we underestimate communities. And if somebody has paid $44 billion for the Twitter community, then we know where we are going with this as well. So those are my final reflections, that people must not look too far. They must look at what is in front of them.
Eric Isako, always an inspiration to be with, and very, I think engineers have a very interesting way of doing things. Two of my friends who are engineers, and you just have a very special way of doing things.
Right.
So this has been another edition of the Job Pathways. And Eric, thank you so much for coming.
Most welcome.
Let's do this again another time. But please join us next week for another thrilling conversation around job pathways. Our ultimate ambition is to make it easier for that young person to understand the world of work and know what to do, where to look, where to go, and how to approach opportunity in the workplace. This has been brought to you by the Springboard Roadshow Foundation and proudly sponsored by the MTN Pulse Enterprise Group and the Ghana Growth Program, with media support from the Multimedia Group and the Graphic Business. My name is Albert Okran, saying God bless you, and God bless you.
He's a